Hello and welcome to the June 2024 BigFix Briefing Room. My name is Michelle McGough and I'm here with Joe Saylor. Let's go over our agenda for today. We're going to cover the Microsoft 0 days and criticals. We'll look at an IoT risk assessment. VS Code has some malicious extensions. Linux, sorry, you guys are going to have a tough month. We'll briefly cover CISA Kev, and then we'll take a look at a new reports preview in BigFix, and we're looking for feedback on that. So it should be a good month. Joe, why don't you take it away with the 0 days?
Yeah, so starting out with Microsoft Patch Tuesday, we've got 51 total CVEs closed this month. That's a little lighter than normal. Normally we'd expect to see 60, 70, something like that. We got 281 fixlets live in the Patches for Windows site in the BigFix console today. We got one pretty nasty zero day, a couple of criticals, and one extremely big frowny face on DNS for this month. So we're going to start out with the key trap vulnerability against DNS servers. This is our 0 day for this month. It was officially announced a few weeks ago, but it's actually been around for quite a lot longer than that. DNS services like Google and Akamai have actually been dealing with this internally, and so they've already kind of been protected from it before the official announcement was made. But any Microsoft service, if you have like a server 2022 up as a DNS server, you are still vulnerable to this today, and there are some active exploits out there right now. The way this one works is there is a security cipher requirement anytime a DNS server tries to serve a translation of a name to an IP address. And that's in theory to make the communication more secure, so you're not getting a bum DNS server that's malicious and going to point you somewhere you don't want to be. The vulnerability here is that there isn't really a check against how many security suites the server tries to validate at once. So a malicious packet can tell your server to evaluate a couple of million ciphers for a single instance of a request, right? So right now, researchers have seen anywhere between, depending on the implementation, a single packet can take anywhere between 15 minutes to 15 hours to process. And so this is a really low effort kind of attack against DNS servers that an attacker could do to take your systems down.
So, well, hold on. So does this create kind of like a denial of service attack, but instead of it being a network flood, it's flooding the processor of the DNS server?
Yeah. So the DNS server will just be pegged on resources, won't be able to do anything. And it effectively kind of takes down anything that relies on that, right? So, you wouldn't know where google.com is. Your system would just return no address, and you would effectively be down, like your whole network would effectively be down, even though it's maybe just a couple of boxes that are being attacked.
Okay, so you're saying everybody needs to close this vulnerability.
Yeah, this one's super nasty. These servers are probably going to be inside your network, so at least an attacker would have to have local access to them, be inside your VPN already. But that's, not an insanely high bar to clear. And so this one should be like a really, for real, super critical thing for you to close in your environment.
Yeah, credentials are for sale all over the place now. So that's probably not as hard as it used to be. Yeah. What's after this one?
So we got, man, this one really hit me with like a large dose of existential dread. It kind of reminds me of the Windows 95 days when if you didn't apply Service Pack 2 and you just booted up your system, it would be instantly owned and just immediately become part of a botnet, just instantly. And that's kind of what this one is. So this is a vulnerability in the Microsoft Message Queue service. It allows remote code execution for any system that has the message queue service started. So if it started, the user doesn't need to make any other mistake. That's it. Like an attacker gets to run whatever they want on your box.
Is it started by default?
No, fortunately, this is not a default application. It's a Windows component that a user or another piece of software would have to enable and install and start. So not default, thankfully, but anywhere it is turned on is just extremely vulnerable right now.
Okay, so what I'm taking from that is most of our customers are probably not using this. They probably don't have it turned on, but how can they be sure?
Yeah, so I mean, you can of course create an analysis in BigFix to check for the service to see if it's enabled. Your network team can also scan for open listeners on TCP 1801. That's the port that message queuing listens on. So anywhere that's open, you definitely have message queue turned on.
Okay, perfect. Great advice, Joe. What's next?
You're next.
Yes. So
Give me
whenever
your
we
rate.
put these together, I'm always searching, I'm doing research. Joe, you're doing the same thing, and we're looking to see what's going on. And I'll always put in the CVE. I'll just put the year and the dash and the CVE number. And recently, and it's not just Google, sorry, Google, it's not just you, but all of my browsers have started trying to be helpful like this, and they're bringing up the calculator. I didn't ask for arithmetic. So if you want the right answers when you're researching vulnerabilities, you may now want to insert CVE into your search.
Nothing is worse than when muscle memory stuff like that changes.
Crazy.
I still to this day, I still to this day will type something into the search bar in just a Windows box and end up clicking on an Internet Explorer link instead of, MS Control Panel.msc or something like that. It's hard to break that habit.
It's helping somebody, just not me. All right, vulnerabilities of the month. Now, these are the ones that you pick out where they're either really urgent and they didn't come up in the Microsoft content, or the risk score is not aligned at all with the severity. And so our customers might be kind of, either a little too relaxed about it or a little too aggressive about it. And we want to make sure that that gets
Yeah,
proper
the
attention.
interesting ones.
What's
So
this one?
here's an interesting one. This is an actively exploited vulnerability today. It's on Ariane systems kiosk mode. So these are like a check-in kiosk you might see at a hotel.
Oh, yeah.
Not a ton of them out there. There's, maybe 3,000. There's more than a few, right? This is something that you might actually touch if you went and traveled and just checked into a hotel. The exploit here is that if you just use a single quote in anywhere in like the login screen, it just crashes the kiosk application and gives you like direct root access to the file system, which, oh, by the way, has like all of the information that a user has entered in the last forever on that kiosk. So, credit card information, maybe room information. There have been instances where like keys were allowed to be cloned because you could get to the root mode of the kiosk.
Oh, the
So
room key.
yeah, not the crypto key, not the cryptographic key, but like actual physical access to a room that somebody had already checked into.
Okay. Yeah, I saw this too, and it's like if you go up to the kiosk and you're going to search for your reservation by, say, your name or the reservation number, if you just put, it was just a single quote, right? Anywhere in those fields, it would just tip the whole thing over, exit kiosk mode, and you just, like you said, have direct access. So travel is really dangerous right now. I mean, there's
Yeah,
the VPN. Remember we talked about that last month where so we know we don't want to be on public Wi-Fi. We don't like that, but that's what the hotel has. So we turn on our VPN and that's not secure right now. So now there's this going on with the kiosk. Maybe I'll stay home
yeah,
for a little while.
sounds reasonable. Just stay inside. It's just COVID 2.0, electronic
Wow.
COVID today. The really interesting thing about this one to me, like the main reason I wanted to call it out is that it came in at a CVSS 6.8, which, in the Windows world, like I don't even get up for a 6. Like
Yeah.
there's just 1,000 of these every month. But because of the nature of a kiosk system, like normally anything in the 6 or even 7 range typically means the exploitation of this is very difficult. Like it has a lot of high bars to clear. In this case, you have to have physical access to the device, which in like the server world or even on your laptop, that's a high bar, right? That's not something that will always happen, and we can say that it's less likely to be exploited because of that requirement. But that's not the case on a kiosk. Like, what else is a kiosk but physically available to anybody?
Right.
So suddenly this 6.8, because it's has a high bar to clear for exploitation, is not that high a bar to clear anymore. And so that mismatch on these IoT devices, I think, is worth paying really close attention to. Like, this is a really good case study on why IoT, even though the exploits may not seem that bad, especially if you're used to Windows exploits, it's actually quite a lot worse than it looks.
And note to self, Joe doesn't get out of bed for anything 6.8 or lower. Noted.
Yeah,
This
not
is a good
once.
one, Joe. Yeah, good choice. What's next? Oh, right. I keep wanting to
Yes.
call it Count Darkula.
Yeah, so we learned this month, thanks to a bleeping computer story about some Israeli security researchers, that VS Code extensions are just like a hive of scum and villainy. Um, these heroes, anti-heroes, we'll go with anti-heroes, created a kind of fake malicious VS Code extension named Darkula, the Darkula theme, which was a play on the very popular Dracula theme, which is a dark mode theme for VS Code. It appeared to be sort of authentic. It used the same icon as the Dracula theme. It had a domain registered that was very similar. It had the same typo. It was the darkulatheme.com or whatever the address was. So at a glance, sort of looked the same. But instead it had some extra little code in there that reported like all of your private information to these researchers. Fortunately, since it wasn't really malicious, nobody actually got owned by it. But they did find that practically every like Fortune 500 company had someone install this. So it was just really widely installed. They had thousands of installs before the story came out, and they kind of took it down. And that kind of led them to the idea to check on, well, where else is malicious code in the VS Code marketplace, right? Like, what other extensions exist that have stuff that will just like give away your username and password, or allow remote code execution on your box. Um, and the tool they came up with found around 1,300 extensions available today in the VS Code marketplace that
Malicious
had
extensions. 1,300
malicious,
malicious.
yeah, with known malicious code. This isn't just stuff
Okay.
that, yeah, I mean, it's not even the totality of it, right? This is just known malicious code. And those had about 230 million installs around
Wow.
the world.
So now it's been a while since I've done this, but I don't think EDRs are looking at VS Code because I
Yeah, I mean,
think it's filtered, right? I mean, you don't want to have the EDR like banging on a developer's environment, right? It's a terrible experience for them and it never finds anything malicious. So you open up holes for that, and
yeah,
then
in
you're not
general,
detecting actual. Sorry.
right. Yeah, I mean, in general, we treat VS Code, really developer applications in general, as um, kind of inherently harder to scan. And so we don't ever spend as much time verifying whether this stuff is
Right.
malicious or not. And of course, there's exceptions in place all the time for developer applications. And it turns out developers are people, and they will just install whatever looks convenient. And as always, the person
Like
is
the rest of us.
the weakest link. And this is what we found, is that you know people will just install the first thing they see that does what they think it will do. And in the developer space, it turns out that's very dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, so let's lay it out then. So, most of our customers have some code that's internal, whether they're selling that B2B or B2C, or they're just using it for their internal stuff. So they have developers, they have engineers, like all of our customers. And they're likely not scanning these environments with EDR because you don't do that, right? I mean, you don't. So how are they going to find this?
Yeah, I mean it's tough right now. I expect as a result of this story that we're going to see tighter controls around
Yeah.
extensions and developer tools. It doesn't so much exist today as something that's like commonly scanned, but it will come for sure, like as a result of this.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know how you follow that up. Oh, Linux.
We followed up
Oh
with a Linux
gosh.
disaster this month. Uh, this one's really weird. Like there's 27 new CVEs in the Linux kernel this month. I don't know what like security researchers triggered all of this. Maybe someone just decided, this was the month we were going to look at Linux for the year and then
Yeah, right.
you bank up all our CVEs.
Like
uh,
Linux is usually good, and then 6 months later, you're like, maybe we should look at it.
yeah, normally I would see like a couple, two, three, four, five, maybe 7.0 or higher vulnerabilities in Linux. And yeah, we got 27 this month. Obviously, I
Okay.
don't have enough time to go over all of them. There isn't really much of a commonality between them. It's not like somebody found a vulnerability in a USB driver and that same vulnerability was in 40 different files, right? Like they're all a little bit different. Um, they don't really pass the bar to remote exploitation. They are all local exploitation. There are a bunch of use after freeze, which is sort of like a remote code execution, but you need local access to the memory.
Okay.
Quite a lot of privilege escalation to root, that sort of thing. And again, it's all local attack vectors.
Okay. All
So
right. Sorry, Linux folks, but you had a good 6 months there.
yeah, yeah, you get to feel like Windows for a month.
Yeah.
Sorry.
A little bit. Yeah. All right. What is next? Oh, it's just a Kev. Yeah. Eight editions, not a bad month. I see you've got one highlighted here for Checkpoint.
Yeah, so for our known exploited vulnerabilities list here, not a heavy number. I did want to point out that the checkpoint vulnerabilities that was discovered a week or two ago is a really good reason to follow this list. It's again things that have been known to be exploited in the wild, so it gives you a good sense of priority. And this one in particular is pretty heavy. It's an exploit on some VPN service from Checkpoint. Um, the way this was worded really made me tilt my head and wonder what anyone was thinking. The exploit allows an attacker to gain sensitive information from an exposed gateway, like that's the actual wording that's used in the CVE. But it turns out that sensitive information in this case is really minor stuff like the admin username and password for the VPN service. Like really just, minor things like that.
It's a minor thing.
Uh,
Okay.
so really, I mean, this should really be like an escalation of privilege or, it's not quite a remote code execution, but it does give you the admin account. So it's quite bad. It's like much worse than it kind of looks if you just saw that it was sensitive information that was exposed.
Okay. Yeah, this is a really important thing to point out. Thank you. And
Yeah.
then you're saying here easy pivots to other services, and that's because they're getting the admin credentials.
Yes. Yeah. So once you have the credentials, you can just kind of pivot to whatever at that point. One interesting thing that I saw about this exploit is that we know from network scanning utilities that there are right now about 780 unique addresses trying to exploit this on the internet today, just like right this second. They're just trawling the internet looking for this thing. And so, if you found out about this through me, sorry, your network is done. But if you had been watching the Kev list, you would have seen this immediately, like right when the government caught wind of this was posted, and then you would have been able to take action on it right away. So a lot of value in the Kev list. Pay attention to it. It's a great thing.
Thanks, Joe. Well, what's coming next? Oh, I saw this preview. So I'm glad you chose to put this. We just had an event in Los Angeles and I saw this demoed and it looks awesome.
Yeah, we are working on improving the web reports UI is essentially what this is. So the BigFix reports preview is now open. If you were on 11.02, you can go enable this today. It isn't like GA code. It's not complete. There are buttons that don't work in it. So like, don't panic when you take a look at it. We are actively seeking feedback on what you want to see in here. You know, what the new features do for you, what old features you need back that aren't currently there, that sort of thing. One thing that really excited me is that there's dark mode now. It's just, I can't, it's unbelievable how happy this has made me. Like, I
Okay,
no
tell us
longer
what's
have to
working there.
use sketchy browser extensions to give myself dark mode in all of my applications. It brings a tear to my eye. It's fantastic.
I thought I saw you had an image. Did you include one? Yeah.
Yeah, so
Um,
here's what it looks like. We have a new concept called playlists in BigFix reports. So this is something we're definitely seeking feedback on. Playlists are essentially just a set of widgets, set of visualizations. Right now they're not customizable, but we anticipate that that's what's going to happen, right? So this one on screen here is the patch focus sample playlist. You know, it's got all sorts of useful visuals in here. And then the idea is you'd be able to customize these to whatever data you want and whatever visuals you want.
Very cool. And I see the little feedback button on the right with the smiley face.
Yeah, so you don't, I mean, of course you can contact any of your local BigFix representatives for feedback, but we decided we'd make it a little bit easier and just give you a feedback button straight in the interface. So that goes to us. We are absolutely looking at every bit of feedback you send, so please let us know what you think.
Excellent, Joe. Thank you so much. So this is a fun month. We're going to do it again next month. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the or ring the bell if you want to get a notification when the next one goes live. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.